who are sparing
time
time to
to
listen
listen
to
to
our
our
talks
talks
based on our
based on our
meditations
meditations
on
on
Swami
Swami
Vivekananda.
Vivekananda.
Last
Last
Saturday, we went through his life,
slide emphasizes
emphasizing the
the
significance of
significance of
Swamiji's appearance in
appearance in
India
India.
at that particular time. Today, we continue our meditations. Why I call it meditations is because reading and understanding some text is different from meditating on the subject. Unless I meditate on something, I may not be able to go into the depth of the meaning of any subject. Probably that is why it is meant nididhyasa is necessary in our studies. So, during my meditations on Swamiji, several pictures, possibilities appear before the mind. So, in the next 3 lectures, I would like to present Swamiji first as Vishwabhanu, universal light. Second, as a Vishwabandhu, a universal friend. And in the third meditation, as Vishwa Guru. So that is how I have planned these next 3 talks. And after that, I'm sure some of very good speakers who are available in Ramakrishna Math, in Sharda Math, and outside, they may also add their views to our deliberations. So today we will start as Vishwabhanu. Why did I choose this sort of a special epithet to refer to Swamiji? No, there was a great Sanskrit scholar in the erstwhile Travancore University. He wrote a kavya on a poetical composition on Swami Vivekananda, and he called it as Vishwabhanu. He was a great elderly friend of mine, and before he passed away, he handed over all the copies of his book, Vishwabhanu, to me at Kanyakumari and said, now Vishwabhanu is yours. You can take care of him. So since then, whenever I think of Swamiji, his universal dimension, that is what fills up my mind. So I use that name Vishwabhanu wherever there is a chance to present Swamiji. There was an exhibition on Vishwabhanu. There is a booklet on it, Vishwabhanu, and we have got a mural exhibition here in Kodungalur, Vishwabhanu. So that word has caught my imagination, and I would like to share it with you so that you would also develop that sort of a meditation on Swamiji. So that is only to speak about how I got involved with the name of Vishwabhanu. Now, of course, we know Vishwabhanu means the universal light, and it refers to the sun. What does a sun do? What is sun's contribution to our life? Coming to think of it, first, it lights up our way. Secondly, it removes our ignorance of the way. Then it sheds light on our understandings and misunderstandings so that we can come clear of it. That is, in our Shastras, Vijvam Bhujangama Iva. A rope is mistaken for a snake, and only when light falls on it, our misunderstandings will be cleared. So, the light brings reality into our comprehension. So it is connected with our removal of misunderstandings and our recognition of our real self, clears the mission of the pathway and the goal to be reached, removes all the obstacles on our way. Like that, when you think of sun, all these are part of the gifts which sun God gives to us. Light, warmth, happiness, energy, whatnot. So I used to feel, rightly has this professor called him Vishwabhanu. And what is special about it, he is not a light, a small torchlight or a small bulb. No, he is a universal light. The light which he has spread has illumined countless number of human beings, cleared their doubts, cleared their misunderstandings, opened up a new pathway of understanding oneself and the God and the world. So many things. So that has been Swamiji's contributions. So it is in a very fulfilling way to think of Swamiji as a Vishwabhanu. And from this point of view, we shall analyze his birth, growth, education, etc. See, always keeping in mind this quality of the sun, bringing illumination, happiness, etc., etc. So, when we think of his birth, we all know it was the blessed couple, Vishwanatha Datta and Bhuvaneshwari Devi, who begot this son. And remember, they had to do a lot of tapas. It was not easy. It was not as a firstborn who came out of their wedlock. They didn't have a son. And they had to do a lot of tapas, a lot of sadhana to beget this son. So, Swamiji later used to say, only he is an Aryan who comes out of the tapas of his parents. So, Swamiji was born out of the tapas of his parents. And this tapas is what is missing in the parenthood of our present day world, so that the children who are born to the parents are neither suns nor moons. They are what we are seeing in the world today. So tapas is necessary. Tapas is a deep yearning in the heart of the mother. Mother observes pujas, acharyas, anushtanas, vratas, all the time concentrating on the prayer to God, I must get a son who is worthy of being a real human being. So he must be one who would be able to stand up and say, I am proud to be a man. So give me such a son. And that is how she brings him up also, telling him stories, pointing out to the heroes of our cultural heritage, implanting in him the ideal of a great human being. How you can become a great human being. That is how she brings him up. When Sri Krishna was born and his Namakaran ceremony was to take place, the Garga Rishi, who came for that specially to Nanda's Gokula, he puts a child in his lap and then says, what name can I give to this child who will surpass everything that we know? To him, to whom will be attracted the whole of the universe, whose very benign presence will change the atmosphere. And then the great Rishi called him by the name Krishna, a great source of attraction. Why did the Datta couple name their child as Narendra? What inspiration or compulsion forced them to name their much awaited son as a king among men? His early years, like Sri Krishna's, was spreading exuberant joy around, full of mischiefs, followed by deep love and understanding of not only his family, but also those who ever crossed his way. Like his son, this son of Dattas, Narendranath, he also, through his abundance of love and understanding and compassion, made himself into an eternal, universal light. So it is up to us to make use of that light as we can and be blessed by that. The sky of Bharat is illuminated by many a star who have dedicated their lives for upholding truth and dharma. Amidst them is Swami Vivekananda, who illuminated the whole world with his great luster, assuming the greatness of a universal teacher. The noble qualities which marked out his life from childhood. From here only, our meditations should center into the qualities of the Son, which we have to imbibe unto ourselves. Purity of his character, brilliance of his intellect, heroic compassion, dedication to the cause of upholding Satya and Dharma for the emancipation of the whole of humanity. Look how this small child's mind got imprinted with these qualities. How the present day mothers are failing in that. Because We have no idea how the potential divinity in a child, in a human being, is to be brought out. He was a prince among teachers. He was a prince among saints. He grew up to be a man with capital M, who towered much above the general level of humanity. Meditating on him as a universal light, a Vishwabhanu, is sure to illumine our own lives. The trail of light he has left behind is indeed truly worthy of emulation. Vishwanath Datta's wife Bhuvaneshwari, as I said, did a lot of tapas. And finally, it got centered in Kashi Vishwanath. And when she was blessed with a son, she started calling him as Vireshwar, which God shortened into Bilay. Blessed indeed has become that day, 12th January 1863, for all of us. The Makara Sankranti, marked in the Indian Jyotisha as a very, very auspicious day. Whoever thought that that day would become a holy day for millions across the world in the years to come, especially for the youth of our country. So that is how the brilliance of that child Narendra started spreading its luster. Now, when you think of somebody as a son, son means S-U-N, son, the qualities which I had enumerated earlier, we should be able to see them reflected in the behavior, words, and teachings of that person. So, when you look at that life of Swami Vivekananda, we find it was he who drew India out of her isolation of centuries. We all know, no? For centuries, under the thraldom of attacks by the foreign powers, she had lost her individuality. So it was Swamiji who drew India out of her isolation of centuries, because among all the other countries which had fallen in line with the Western civilization and culture, this was the place which was standing apart, not bowing its head totally. So there was an isolation for India amongst the countries of the world. Oh, that is a country full of superstition. They have got a religion which is of no value. There is no science in it, no logic in it, no rationality in it. So there was nobody to take our cause and present it to the world at large. So it was Swamiji who tuned up India's timeless clock to chime with the most modern times. It was he who emphatically declared that religion and spirituality, what religion and spirituality is, and that it should be the backbone of our individual and national life. It was he again who for the first time pointed out that India's downfall was due to the neglect of her masses. Nobody had bothered about it. Great teachers, great scholars. I think till the time of Buddha, there was a neglect of the lower strata of the society. Downfall was due to the neglect of her masses, and they should be raised through education, through education to a minimum level of material prosperity, with proper stress on spiritual values as well. Even then, his heart had broken out at the neglect of women in our country. Imagine Swamiji as a champion of our cause. Women of our country, whom he considered as the repositories of our grand cultural and spiritual heritage. Devakarya Samudyata. I refer to an Indian woman, a Hindu woman, as a Devakarya Samudyata. She is born not to fulfill the material wishes or desires, but she is trusted with a particular job of carrying on the tradition, passing on the tradition of Satya Dharma into the next generation. That is why I refer to a Hindu woman to be a Devakarya Samudyata. And it is a meditation on that word probably that can bring some solace to the Indian woman. Above all, it was he who made the world aware of the priceless gems lying hidden in the coffers of the Indian spiritual treasure house, with their everlasting message and clear-cut directives for the survival of mankind and of Mother Earth as a living planet. See, these are all the problems which we are facing today. And who is going to give us the light? What to do, what not to do? So we can go to Swami Vivekananda and get the light, get the instructions, get the knowledge to clear our misunderstandings. As one moved towards perfection, in this manner, truth must manifest itself and transform such a life into something magnificent. That is what Swamiji shows us through his life. When he says manifestation of divinity, how it can be done by a human being so that he becomes a man with capital M, as we used to emphasize. Transform a life into something magnificent, which the world has to take note of. This is the truth behind the lives of all great men who have left their impressions in the world's history. Now, for the development of our individuality, Swamiji prescribes invoking the Vedantic ideal of potential divinity. Each soul is potentially divine, yoking it to our work, worship, psychic control, or philosophy. Infusing the same with deep love and reverence for our motherland, he teaches us to raise our efforts to that of a divine mission. Our lives have to be, I said, Devakarya Samudyata for women. Not only that, it is for all of us. Our lives here in India has to be a divine mission of creating a transmission center for our eternal spiritual values. Swamiji says, values cannot be bought from a bazaar. They have to be lived through a person. A value should pass from one generation to another, not through books, but through the lives of persons who would live that. Thereby making our offerings for keeping these values ever alive and vibrant from one generation to another. Vibrant, a value becomes vibrant, useful, only when it is lived by a person. A music, for example, we have got Tyagaraja has sung such wonderful music. How we are keeping it? So many people have done tapasya on that. They have absorbed the inner strength of Tyagaraja's compositions, Muthuswami Dakshitas, Shyama Shastri's. They have imbibed those and made their own lives a tapas to bring it out to the next generation. It was Swamiji's hope and faith that as larger and larger sections of our people actualize this idealism in their lives, be he a cobbler or a professor, poor or rich, man or woman, there would be a regeneration, a cultural and spiritual revival, so that India would once again fulfill her role of providing a spiritual, holistic vision of reality to the world. Individual, national, and universal are the level in which Swamiji envisages the manifestation of the Indian ideal. So when we examine his life in all these aspects, we will get a new light, a new understanding, a new technology to put it into practice, keeping our life's goal as a manifestation of divinity, which is variously interpreted as truth, knowledge, love, freedom. Swamiji exhorts us to add a new dimension and glow to our lives by moving away from the fragmenting material to the holistic spiritual. We all know the modern science is compelling us to move away from the fragmented to the wholesome. Acceptance of the spiritual oneness of the entire universe and the consequent interrelatedness and interdependence of all that exists therein is the ideal around which he wants our national character to be carved out. Based on this should be evolved a new awareness of the responsibility of every individual towards everything that exists in the universe. Through the regeneration of this ideal, our country must regain the moral strength and power to lead the world to a victory of spirit over matter. So that is how we can probably summarize the contributions of Swamiji. But now we will see, this is all right, but when we are talking of incidents in Swamiji's life, what light we are getting from all those, we write about incidents in Swamiji's life, Swami Vivekananda's life and teachings, he was a son born to so and so, like this we'll go on writing. But from this understanding, let us look some of the what we may consider as very insignificant things in his childhood or later, and how there also he is like a sun. Remember, a sun, it provides a new understanding, a new warmth, a new light, a new knowledge. That is the duty of the sun. And whenever sun shines, the darkness is removed. So whenever sun is there, all our misunderstandings, all our ajnana is removed and the light of knowledge is brought in. So that is how little Narendra, being a little son who had imbibed that qualities of the sun in him from childhood, started growing up. We'll start with some of the very, very little pranks of the child. He is supposed to have been very mischievous, but in this mischief was a pattern. And what was that pattern? Making people laugh, making people love him more and more, make him more and more attractive to the members of his family. Whom do we remember in this connection? you will remember Sri Krishna. I always feel after Sri Krishna, Swamiji is the best character we can love, adore, and emulate. So, through his mischiefs, he kept together his family in exuberant joy. So, there was no shade of unhappiness. As long as he was there in the family, he will bring a new light of understanding. Then we hear that he was always in the habit of giving away things to people. That is one of his characteristics as his childhood, in his childhood. What does it teach us? Idam na mama. Nothing in this world is ours. Go on giving. See yourselves in others. Whatever you have, you share with others. Whether it is clothes, whether it is money, whether it is love, affection, understanding, always go on sharing it with others. See how I have done in my childhood. So, in the same way, what we should do, we should teach our children. You be like Swami Vivekananda. You must learn to give things to others who are less fortunate. That is how later he enunciates the law of Tyaga and service, the twin ideals of our country. So, this little son Narendra will always be giving things. His mother will lock him up in a room. He will throw the things through the windows to the poor people who will come and pray for something from him. Do we do that? Turn the mirror towards us. Do we do that? Here we should remember Nachiketa's question to his father. Father, we are giving away all these people. He saw that. And what question did he ask? To whom are you going to give me? Because he knew that is not the correct way. So, Swamiji's this simple lesson in his life, he teaches us, go on giving. Enjoy the pleasure that you can develop by giving to others. Give, give, give. See yourself in others and practice the art of giving. Then it will be revealed the science of giving. What is the science of giving? That is, you and the other is one and the same. Ekatma bhava. So this ekatma bhava was very much present in him. Then we find a tremendous presence of mind in this child. What did he do? Whenever somebody was in danger, now what we are doing now, you see a car accident, you take photographs so that you will get some name and fame. But whenever Swamiji found something unusual in front of him, he had no qualms about it. We have heard he gets into the horse carriage of a woman, lady who was carrying a child, catches hold of the reins of the horses and takes her to safety. A sailor who comes to the gymnasium, something falls on him, all his friends ran away, but he had the presence of mind. But from where do we get the presence of that mind? Only when the sun of our understanding illumines everybody as our own. See, that is how he develops not only his head to understanding, knowledge, etc., but his heart also always expansive. So that is something which we have to learn from him. So when we read this incident, we have to put the mirror onto ourselves. Can I become like that? That is, can I teach my child to be like that? See, when somebody is suffering, go to him, share his sufferings, try to see in what way we can alleviate the sufferings of a human being. Similarly, in the school, we hear there was somebody, he was very mischievous. School also was no exception. And a friend of his, through he was talking, and master caught hold of him and thought, hey, Narendran is a good boy, he won't do such things. So he tried to punish that boy. And what did he do? We would have been very happy. Anyway, master didn't see me. Master has caught hold of him. See, no. Truth was very much ingrained in him. He couldn't stand that. For the fault of his, another getting punished. Impossible. He stood up valiantly and said, it is I who have done it, not he. So if you want to punish, you punish me. Probably this must have been one of the ways in which our great father of the nation developed satyagraha for his facing the British. So any incident in Swamiji's life we take, we will find that there is a lesson in that. Be faithful, be true to yourself. And later we find that it is this craving for truth, to stand by truth, to absorb by truth, to know the ultimate value of truth in human life, that Swamiji approaches his great master and asks him the great question, have you seen God? Which is a historical question. So, from there starts his life in a different dimension. So the morning hours of the sun are over, and from there we find the midday sun. The sun going to shine like anything. First, he went round the country, absorbing the conditions of the people, high and low, rich and poor, those who are fortunate and those who are suffering. Absorb the truth of everything, because later if he has to remove the misunderstandings, lack of light, he must know for himself. Personally, he went through all the sufferings of the Indian people. Lack of food, lack of water, lack of accommodation, walking, neglect, everything. But the sun in him shone forever. Now take, for example, his Chicago message. Very coolly we say, sisters and brothers of America. During our election time, we hear it very, very often. Sisters and brothers, no? All those who want to be elected, our candidates, they will come and address the crowd, sisters and brothers. It will look as though we are born of the same family. But what impact this created? Sisters and brothers of America. What was the impact that was created? More than 3,000 people felt an impulse in their heart that they are really belonging to the heart circle of this great man. Why? Because he has realized the truth of oneness. Probably through his Nirvikalpa Samadhi, he must have seen the whole universe as one. And then when he addressed it, it came not from the head filled with knowledge, but from a heart filled with understanding. So everywhere we find there is a sun shining in Swamiji's words, in Swamiji's thoughts, in Swamiji's actions. It is that sun whom we should capture so that it sheds its shine in our life. These are just part of some of my meditations. And let me conclude with the last stanza from that great composition Vishwabhanu, which Professor Pillai has written. Vimalakirana-vrindai samvidunmeelidaisthai nikilatimiraham Vishwabhano pavitram charidamidamudattam sajjanat swaprabhavat srijadu bhuvana bhutye dharmigan karmaviran. May this great and holy account of Vivekananda, the universal light, illumine with sacred rays the spring of spiritual bliss and exert its influence over righteous men to transform themselves into religious men of action. So, when you adore Swamiji as a son, as a Vishwabhanu, you get a special light. It throws light on all your misunderstandings, transforming them into understanding, onto your ignorance, transforming it into knowledge, into your selfish identity, changing it into an unselfish identity with the whole of this universe. So let us also pray that the light of that universal light, it was our great master Swamiji, may it shed a little bit, a few rays of light and understanding on our humble lives. Thank you.